Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, just before the next financial year 2024-25 budget, Pakistan and International Monetary Fund negotiations on 24th review are going on. Pakistan wants an extended fund facility of about 6 to 8 billion US dollars for the next 3 to 4 years. Federal Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb categorically said that structural reforms and enhancing tax base is inevitable to have autonomy in financial sector. Pakistan's economy has a great potential to grow, but unfortunately the tax to GDP ratio is still hovering around 10.3%, which is below average to the regional tax to GDP ratio that is 19% in South Asia. Government eager to enhance tax to GDP ratio to 15%, but unfortunately we have seen over the years that the tax policy largely based upon taxing the already taxed, still largely unable to tax the untaxed or undertaxed, particularly the lucrative sectors like agriculture, real estate, retail sector, transport, gold, online businesses and even e-commerce. While IMF has a huge wish list of reforms, so the question is that whether Pakistan is going through those reforms, how hard it is to go on with that for the political government to take that baggage, because ultimately it has a political price as well. So to talk on this important subject, we have in our studios Syed Tanseer Bukhari. He is the senior Supreme Court advocate, as well as he was ex-president Rawalpindi Islamabad Tax Bar Association. Most welcome to you, Tanseer sir. Thank you very much for being here. Along with him, Dr. Usman Chohan, very famous figure. He is the economic expert. Most welcome to you, Doctor. Thank you very much. And online joining us, Dr. Hasnain Javed. He is the senior economist, has a close eye on Pakistan's economic situation right now. Most welcome to you, Doctor. Thank you very much for joining us. And my first question to you, that what's your opinion related to the a report which came earlier on in February actually, that was titled as Tax Policy Diagnostic and Reform Options. That report was actually surfaced by IMF, elaborated on tax systems underperformance and suggests urgent structural reforms. How do you see this report, and in the light of that report and even related to the urgent reforms required into the structure of the tax regime, how do you see all this aspect?
Very pertinent question. There are three types of change. One is, urgency to change. One is need to change, and second is proactive to change. We have to be proactive to change, but urgency should. We are in the phase of urgency to change. Well, regarding this report, the IMF February report highlights a crucial problem. Pakistan underperforming tax system, revenue generation, efficiency, equity, fairness and sustainability. The report highlights the facts so many of us are already aware of, yet these issues have been ignored. So tax of GDP ratio remain low, as you earlier said, it is around 10%, which is very much low and compared to the regional peers. So this translates to the lack of revenue for the critical government spending. So government spending is very much important in that part. So verbally I am saying just underline this issue. So IMF suggests the government should apply the same rate of excise on all locally manufactured cigarette, regardless of whether the manufacturer is local or foreign. I don't know what is the logic behind that. I am completely unaware of that. But my logic says, foreign is fine, but not on local. Now this could heavily discourage the local industry, which is already slowing, which is perishing to the belly. So I believe IMF recommendation of the structural reform to the broaden the tax base, which is very much high. Of course, we are in this year only 14,000 billion is going to be in for the tax base, and broadening the tax base in that way, all the middle class is already suppressed. So improved compliance and increased tax collection efficiency are much needed, which I have been talking and writing about for years. However, I don't agree with the recommendation made in this report. Uh, there are many other issues which I tell and elaborate in a further session, which is
Definitely, you are
again
absolutely right. Absolutely right. Advocate Syed Tanseer Sahab, on May 6th, the government has made an amendment into the tax laws, curtailed the right of appeal before the Commissioner Inland Revenue, and barred with the certain financial limits as well. So, in case of dismissal or rejection of any sort of appeal, the next forum is the High Court. So, what is it all about? Do you not think that it has curtailed most of the things for the business community?
Thank you very much having me with you, and say hello to Dr. Hasnain especially. Sir, on 6th May 2024, legislation has been promulgated through enactment of Parliament. Before going to this enactment, the government was in hurry to enact this legislation through ordinance. The President Asif Ali Zardari stopped to sign this document and say to the as National Assembly to put up the bill before the Assembly and pass proper through channel. Ultimately, this
lawmakers to legislate rather than just an ordinance.
You can say. Ultimately, this law has been passed on 6 May 2024. What behind it? What happened? We have to make the drastic changes in appellate foras in Pakistan since 1947 till to date, especially in the Income Tax Ordinance and Sales Tax Act and Federal Excise Duty. Custom was little bit different. There was the adjudication system was little bit different from the income tax and sales tax hierarchy. At the moment, one question come into my mind: what happened with the Prime Minister to take this action on a very, very aggressive way? The reason, when I learned about the history of Pakistan, we are the nation under debt since last decades and decades. And every day our debt is increasing rather than by
Definitely,
decreasing.
we have more than 70% of our budget is going to the debt retirement.
So there is the organs of the country. Just like you say, the organs in the body of human being. One is the liver, one is the kidney, one is the heart, all are integrated. So FBR and the revenue collection is an organ
Obviously,
in your
obviously.
hierarchy. So all the pressure put up on this organ to collect the tax, to press the pulpy, juicy fruits like the already registered taxpayers. One of this action has been taken for these existing taxpayers. Without going into the expansion of tax base or these things, they made these changes. What are the changes?
This is a real dilemma basically, because we are taxing the already taxed rather than just untaxed or undertaxed. But might be there was, because you know that the current government is very much eager to enhance the tax base. Might be there was some sort of lack of across the board negotiations with all the stakeholders, or might be that is the case.
Zero.
So that was, but the sincerity of the government, or might be the Prime Minister, we cannot doubt it, but I think so the actions must have to be rational.
Of course. The main thing in this all scenario built up within this last 1 month is very important. We have just passed the you can say the process of IMF loan sanctioning. You know, when the lender come to you, he will advise you his own policy.
Obviously.
So
obviously.
I think since last 7-8 years, even I can say more than 12 years, our country is facing the political instability. Day and night changes, day and night. Who is coming, who is going, who is in behind the bar, who will out of the bar. So this make this country damage. What are the changes? I just go through for your audience. Those are interested to see the tax laws in Pakistan. Here is the section 127 deals with the commissioner appeal process, filing of appeal before the, if any taxpayer aggrieved with the order of the adjudicating authority officer, which is deputy commissioner or the additional
Obviously,
commissioner,
he has the right
he
to
can
appeal.
prefer this appeal under section 127, 128 and 129. What has been changed? Commissioner appeal now bound to hear the cases in income tax matters less than 20 million. One.
Okay.
less than 10 million in sales tax matters, less than 5 million in federal excise duty matters. What is the rationale of it? What is the rationale of it? Okay, it's all right. The main thing is this, which is the, you can say, the curtail the right of one forum, which is the fact-finding forum appellate tribunal, which is established under section 130. Now a businessman file first appeal to the commissioner appeal if his order is below the 20 million and he lose this order from this forum, he immediately climbs over the high court. And you know, especially we are residing over here in Islamabad, only 7 judges with a burden of thousands of cases. Here is a main flood. Now I think so more than 54 commissioner appeals across the country. Daily basis, if 10 order passed, then what will be the scenario in high court?
Means once again the business community or the businesses are going to into the litigation. And that is not going to be solved in nearly 1 to 2 years. So it is going to be cost the economy particularly.
Of course. And one another thing, here is the filing fee enhanced from 100 rupee to 50,000 rupee. Besides thinking here, one of the taxpayer who is a small taxpayer, he get the order of, for example, 4 lakh, 3 lakh, 2 lakh. But it's important for him that 2 lakh is equal to 2 billion for him. We cannot say this is a small amount. Okay, he will file appeal before the High Court with this deposit fee, 50,000 rupee.
I can't understand. It's going to be very unfair.
One another thing, these all things happened. Here is the Prime Minister vision is very clear. He heard from some, you can say, important persons that 2.7 trillion rupee is stuck in the appellate tribunal. So since last 10 years, I heard it, maybe confirm, you can confirm it. It is very strange, not since 10 years. It is today figure. And every day there is the insertion in the backlog and already outflow the cases. So 2.7 trillion means not the pure receivable of the government. It is a 50%, more than 50% cases are appeals of the government, which I can say very simply in the cricket terms, it is the no ball.
So Tanseer sir, when we are talking about additional measures and what measures actually required to enhance the tax base, remove the hurdles, increase the compliance, reduce the evasion, make the tax system friendly, trustworthy and encouraging. We are talking about that is discouraging actually. So simplify the documentation as well while reducing the high tax rates and complex tax laws.
Very pertinent. We are talking about since last 7 decades to enhance expand the tax base. Okay, what we have done for it? Okay, automation was a good step taken in 2010-11. And approximately right now,
and digitalization is going on.
Yes, digitalization. It is a positive and very, very progressive step. But in last 2 decades, we have faced 4 amnesties as well, tax amnesties. What is the cause behind these tax amnesty? Was that to bring the new taxpayer, those are hiding from the tax system.
Obviously,
okay?
Obviously.
Okay, no problem. I am not saying the amnesty is the bad thing. Due to the reason Allah Almighty through Quran give many amnesties, Laylatul Qadr, Hajj Baitullah, and as well as Holy Ramadan. Okay, but with the exception of Tawbah.
Obviously,
okay?
Obviously.
What is the result? Okay, one amnesty given to the nation, to the business community, with the exception of Tawbah. Subsequent year, no tax evasion. So amnesty without Tawbah is not acceptable.
Obviously,
it is the major hurdle not expanding of the tax base.
Obviously.
Okay,
there must have to be accountability along with any sort of amnesty, but the IMF is now talking about no amnesty. There is no amnesty. Dr. Usman, when IMF expects from Pakistan the total revenue for the next fiscal year to be 15.5 trillion rupees. Almost it's 2 trillion rupees higher than the current one, which is 13.36 trillion. So do you think that it's achievable without any tax reforms?
This is an excellent question because IMF targets, when they build their models for countries, in general, tend to be overly optimistic. And the way that they do it is that you have a lot of reverse engineering of the financial model. So you have certain broad targets, and then you work backwards what each portion should attain in order to attain the final target. So you're reverse engineering a formula. When you reverse engineer a formula, you have to apportion which components will drive the increases in the revenue or decreases in expenditure. So when you backfill these numbers, you end up with an increase from 13.36 to 15.5 trillion, which is actually very difficult because, as you have discussed just now, attaining increase through amnesties or other initiatives does not immediately translate into an expansion of the tax base. Therefore, it seems that the means by which they are thinking of going for tax breadth rather than tax depth are not working at the pace that you would require for such a significant increase from 13.36 to 15.5. So it seems there's a gap between the targets that the IMF envisages and what we might actually attain at the present momentum, which means we have to accelerate the momentum at which this revenue collection is.
Definitely, because the recent meeting of the IMF delegation with the FBR people, that is, IMF presented a tax compliance gap analysis report with FBR, and that shows that it's whooping rupees 7 trillion or 3.4% to the GDP is the compliance gap basically. So it means that if you just plug in that gap, you can have a little rupees in your kitty from the tax revenue. So what's your thought on IMF when it's stressing upon the increase in the petroleum levy and collection must increase to 26% or at least 1.1 trillion rupees in the next fiscal year compared to the current budget target of at least 869 or 870 billion rupees. So they are asking that it must have to be revised and it has to be 1.1 trillion in future. So along with that, they are asking the GST on petroleum products as well. So how do you see that? Because right now there is GST is zero at the petroleum products.
You're absolutely right. The measures that you are referring to are forms of indirect taxation, which means that they are regressive by nature, which is that anybody going to the petrol pump will have to pay that whether they're rich or poor. So it doesn't extract more from the wealthy relative.
No segregation of that.
There is no segregation, there is no progressivity in the tax formulation. Therefore, it is bad. But it is often a measure of last resort in any country to go for indirect taxation because it is simply easier to collect, because you have to go to the pump. If you don't, you can't move in your car.
Obviously.
This is the point that therefore ideally we would go towards direct taxation. Direct taxation would have income-based things, but given the restrictions that we see, the limitations, the appellate basis of contending your litigation and so on in taxation means that it is actually easier to go for indirect. It's less hassle, it's easier to collect, and the IMF doesn't want indirect taxation, neither does Pakistan, but we end up relying on this. And if we rely on this and we're filling such large target gaps, then the pressure on the poor portion of the population tends to be very significant. And this is, I think, neither what Pakistan wants or the IMF wants, but it's what we're doing.
So, Advocate Tanseer sir, how do you see the blocking of 500,000 SIMs of non-filers? FBR shared the data with the PTA, the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority. So, some say it will reduce the overall tax revenue by at least 6 to 8 million rupees and annually. So, and some say that it's a right step in a right direction. So, how do you see this? Because it is under 114B of the Income Tax General Order for blocking the SIMs. Along with FBR proposed that even the non-filers who top up some of the mobile phone recharging of rupees 100, they will FBR will get rupees 90 out of that. So only 10 rupees would be in kitty if they are non-filers. So how do you see such measures?
This section amended last, I think so, in a Finance Act through Finance Bill. So this section 114B promulgated for the controlling the taxpayer to compelling them for filing of returns through their closure of SIMs. Okay. What do you think this step can enhance the revenue? No, this cannot enhance the revenue. I think so. This 5 lakh SIM owners, majority, if I am not wrong, more than 70% are below the age of 25. A large number of your citizens are applying for abroad, for study, for job, for anything. If they are leaving for country, they make bank transaction with brother, with cousin, with father, and so, and they get NTN, okay, and they file one return, okay. After it, they become non-filer, okay. So I can say they are not potential taxpayer. We need the potential taxpayer rather than we to make the crowd. Here is a very important example in this regard. What do you think? You want to teach 100,000 students for PhD education? All of them 99 are under metric? No. You will be comfortable and successful in your teaching when only 20 students come with the master degree after approaching the PhD program, okay. So the government is again and again going to the under metric, okay, and they try to get the money from these non-filer. They have nothing. They have nothing. Okay, many times we are talking about the number of taxpayers, okay. Number of taxpayers, we are 250 million population, okay, just divide 100 people.
Even with the filing of any tax return doesn't mean that he is a potential taxpayer.
No.
So we have to segregate and if we have the CNICs which are digitized already, we have all the data available, most of the people are using the ATM cards.
CDA, LDA,
Definitely.
all these authorities are interconnected with FBR through NADRA data.
Obviously,
okay?
obviously.
What is the problem with FBR? Not do the work on it. Unexplained assets are given in the provision of section 111 of income tax ordinance. If I have owner of one plot, I have not declared in my wealth statement, which is filed under section 116 of income tax ordinance. Give me notice, ask me the source, ask me the money, where money trail. No, we are going for the same closures. Rather than the telecom sector already approached the Islamabad High Court, and I heard about it that Chief Justice, Honorable Chief Justice, given the interim stay on closure of these SIMs till 27th May, I think so. So what do you think? These closure of SIM may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, maybe potential taxpayer. Otherwise, next month they will go to the lawyers, they will go to the consultants and ask for filing returns and expense for private purpose. No tax contribution come to the national exchequer. So I think so government should take the steps for expanding the base. This tool might be not
because
successful.
this is loud and clear that we have to expand the tax base, but it must have to be
Potential.
well deliberated,
Potential.
And the potential taxpayers must
we
have
need
to
the
be
potential.
into the-
One another thing I add for you and your audience, 1,400 taxpayers are contributing 91% of your whole tax.
Okay.
Maybe now the figure may be less than 2,000. Less than 2,000 entities are contributing your 94% revenue.
But this is alarming really, because the
Yes.
how much
Yes.
less taxpayers are there. Definitely, your point well taken. Dr. Hasnain, IMF wants to tax pension contributions or benefits, eliminate the benefit of deduction of voluntary payments to the workers, participation funds and exemptions of pensions. So how do you see this step? Because we have seen over the years that time and again all are the people centric tax cuts and all that.
Yes, indeed, it's a bad again, but the IMF suggests to tax pension contribution or benefits and eliminate deduction for the voluntary payments and a participation fund is a contentious issue. While it could generate revenue, it might also discourage saving for the retirement and disappropriately affect salaried individuals. Very much important, I just repeat myself again. So it is very disproportionately affected salaried individual. A more nuanced approach, like taxing only like high income earners or proportion of the benefit, could be explored. So we could burdening an already burdened and deprived section of the community, especially the considering Pakistan's limited social safety net. So this may backfire, and I see it as less beneficial. And term like will only make the negotiation process it will make more challenging. So I'm going to suggest two alternatives for this. One option is taxing high income pension progressively, and second is reviewing exemptions for specific sector while ensuring fairness. And third most important thing is the Pakistan current pension system is non-contributory and defined benefit, which is costly for the country finance. So, there are...
Dr. Saab, when we are talking about the pension tax and reforms, like introduction, as you have rightly said, that introduction of the contributory pension scheme, rationalizing the several tiers of the pension, and then encouraging the single pension to enhance revenue and cut the expenditures. Do you think that this is going to work? Because contributory pension scheme was introduced by World Bank in 2004. Some of the countries got it, but unfortunately we have overlooked.
Very true. The word you are using, I'm always, using this word, the rationalizing everything, rationalizing tax base, rationalizing structure, rationalizing a current account deficit, rationalizing everything whatsoever is possible. So this tier is pension, must have to rationalize. Last year we have spent 850 billion. And this time around it could be like 11,000 of the pension base. But how can we cut and reduce down? Yes, for the current, the new, all the state-owned enterprises must have to cut all this pension, otherwise, and we have to make the single-out pension formula and mechanism. So Pakistan current pension system is non-contributory and no defined benefit, which is costly for the country finance. Most government jobs are conveyed by the unfunded pension, which means that the current employment are paid through the tax revenue. That's for sure. Of course, out of the tax money, we are paying the pensions. Technically, for example, the BlackRock company is technically, dealing with the American pensioners. So the private companies must handle these projects, and they put all the pensioners' money into different projects and get the money paid back to the different people, and the money is secured. And of course, gratuity and pension is very much important for the employee's life. But what we were doing is we are doing nothing. We just collect money, use it, and use the government spending, and then the tax revenue. So rationalizing the multiple pension tier could improve efficiency and potentially generate saving. And introducing the contributory pension scheme, I really appreciate you because putting up all these questions is never been highlighted and put up in any of the forums. So that's why I'm answering this issue in a very explanatory way. So similarly to Indian, so I'm giving the example of India. So hold merit. This scheme could help reduce government spending, increase pension excess, stimulate the financial market, and create a non-sustainable pension system in the long run. However, careful design and the phased implementation are the crucial to ensure a smooth transition and protect existing pensioners. So I do think this...
Sir, you are absolutely right, because the rationalization and clarity is very important, and that must have to be adhered by the government and the related departments. So Dr. Usman, when we are talking about the existing employees, so what about introducing the grade 1 to grade 22 single universal pay scale? Because we have seen that there are lots of different pay scales, special pay scales, and lots of others. So decoupling the provincial departments from the center particularly, so that you have some sort of financial freedom, and always the federal government to flex its financial muscles as well. How do you see that?
I think what you're referring to is an excellent example of the imbalance that we have between the federation and the provinces in taxation matters. The provinces themselves are spending units, and the federation is the revenue generation unit or the revenue raising unit. This is an asymmetry that has made the federation hollow and the provinces too bloated. And a lot of the expenditure that the provinces do is in their own capitals rather than in the entirety of such large provinces. This asymmetry is unsustainable, and therefore I would like to see a strong center which is fiscally robust, and I would like to see spending in the peripheries of the provinces, which are the most unfavored. The sort of thing that you're referring to is just one measure to attain that. But there are many ways for us to reconcile the fiscal federalism.
Obviously.
And that is the ultimate principle, so that you have a sustainable path for the entirety of the country structure. The federation, therefore, should be something that doesn't just borrow from a banking system or from abroad to fund things further down the line. It should be much more robust in flexing its muscles, as you have said. And at the same time, the way that the bureaucracies of the provinces relative to the public value they create operates is, I think, very asymmetric, and therefore I think much more attention needs to be paid on the province's side. How do goods get taxed? How do services get taxed? Who does the revenue collection? What is the nature of property tax? Then the single payer on the employees. All of these structures need to be looked at in one fell swoop.
Obviously, you are absolutely right. Advocate Tanseer sir, it seems that reducing income tax slabs on salary, then cutting allowances, tax on pensions, increasing petroleum levy or imposing GST or other taxes, all related to the public domain. So what about the elite? What about the lucrative sectors? It means, because the mayors which are there, it's okay, but they are not mentioning actually the elite and the lucrative sector anywhere.
Absolutely right. Everybody is saying about it. Where is the elite? Where is the elite? One thing is very important. If we eliminate the elite for the time being with heavy taxes, okay, vanish them, what will be the existence of poor person? These elites employ the poor persons and run the business, industry and whatsoever. I'm not saying to protect the elite, okay, to give breathing time as well to them. Our whole tax structure is standing upon the indirect taxation.
Indirect taxes, yes.
You are talking about it. Indirect taxes is this: put the tax 400% on tobacco, which give a very setback to our tobacco economy. You can check the figures of smuggling, 1000% increased. The reason is this: one tobacco pack which was sold in 2023 for 200 rupee, right now it's selling on 600 rupee. All the amount incurred is 90-80% is the tax.
Obviously,
okay?
obviously.
Tobacco cost is nothing. And many other things. Unfortunately, FBR installed the track and trace software for tracking the tobacco revenue, but it fell down.
So do you not think that the putting tax, imposing tax on the non-essential items, tobacco is one of that, and that is actually ruining the health system, health sector, because you have extra expenditures on that. So right now report says that at least 31.6 million or nearly 20% of the population using the tobacco products, 1.4% of the cost of GDP to the healthcare system. So why not to tax it? Because since July 2023 to January 2024, we have at least 5, 6, 7 billion rupees which must have to be in the kitty of the government in form of the tax, but unfortunately that is not.
Not. The failure is this: the policy. Immediate impose the tax on tobacco industry after installation of the billions of rupees software track and trace. Okay. The failure is this: we are not controlling our borders. We are not controlling the smuggling. Okay, if the smuggling controlled, might be this figure drop 50%. Many people have no money for buying this tobacco out of their food and all these things.
Obviously.
So there is the option for the people. 1000 rupee is the documented tobacco, and 100 rupee is the smuggled item is available on the in the streets and small shops.
Dr. Hasnain, your point well taken, Advocate. So, Dr. Hasnain, when we are talking about the tobacco industry, 122 billion rupees collected from that industry, but accumulatively, as I've said earlier, 567 billion rupees lost in potential revenue in the last 7 years. So, if collected, it could generate to achieve some sort of the revenue target. What you say?
Very true, but on to the lighter side, I'm just telling you that to reduce down the tax anxiety, why not one puff? Okay, well, that's just just to be on the
encourage smoking basically. So this must have to be, that one puff must have to be withdrawn. So
because tax base is very much, IMF is putting much pressure on us. So one puff must be, reduced down the anxiety level. So, well, the difference in the number is absolutely massive. I think the rupees 122 billion collection demonstrates its potential as revenue source, while the rupees 567 billion in the lost revenue highlights the need for the strict enforcement in combating tax evasion. And Mayor, like the strict track and trace system. I'm fed up of the track and trace system and the introduction of the point of sale system introduced by Shabar Zaidi is taking this this is his part. I'm really fed up of this Shabar Zaidi's dictatorial tax collection system, and this is again continuing the same part where on the 1 lakh of the transaction there is a 0.6. If I'm not wrong, you can check with the Honorable Tanseer Bukhari sahab. And just for the 50,000. There is a 0.3% if there is a transaction within the system, within the banking system, or 1 lakh of the within the transaction system is a 0.3, and the cash transaction is a 0.6. So who and the 22% of the policy rate. The beneficiary is who? The government, and the government is not the beneficiary of the 22%, and not the people. Only the elite class and the bankers, and all the elite class have the banks. So now,
Dr. Saab, when we are talking about point of sale, most of the time the retailers are actually intends to ruin that one as well. And when from the last 2 years at least, at point of sale, some of the people who are actually paying the sales tax over there at the shops, having the shopping and all that, they were getting some sort of the benefit of the POS as well. But unfortunately, those are not getting that benefit now. And the retail sector, which represent at least 30%, they are contributing only meager into the tax net.
That's very true. But POS, I was in the system, and many people says that they have the, cracking system and cracking code system in the POS. So they have also, Pakistani have failed this system, so it doesn't work well. We have to put it into the tax net in the different way with the digital transactions. But the success, and digital transaction is very much important. You can just have to replicate the WeChat system from the China, and all banking transaction on the phone. So successive government in Pakistan have tried the failed to bring the country traders and retailer into the tax net. Is that true or not? So
you are right.
Leading to the situation today where despite
Doctor, we have run short of time, so we have lots of questions. It's a very important subject which is very close to my heart actually. Dr. Chohan, how to address the issue of large informal and cash driven economy? Bring more businesses into the formal sector, including small and medium enterprises and the street vendors as well. So how that would happen, because that is totally out of the net?
Yes, absolutely. The Finance Minister Aurangzeb Saab recently said in his remarks that if you look at the actual size of our economy, it's not 300 billion. With the informal economy, it's probably double that size, about 600 billion. And bringing in that, the main measure that they seem to say is digitalization, using digital technologies. Now, there is a cost involved with this, where you look at a street cart vendor, rediwala as we say, and you look at how much can you squeeze out of him in tax anyways. If you have this system, there is a hierarchy in terms of tax contributory potential, and a lot of the people that are in the informal economy simply don't have enough for the requirements that we have to target. It's just that we're trying to expand the breadth rather than the depth. That is why, as you will carefully note, we're only having half of the conversation, and the other half of the conversation is expenditure. Because what are you raising revenues for? It is to have a government system and its spending prowess. And so when we have that other side of the conversation, ultimately, as the IMF also says to us, you have a large informal economy, people will avoid getting into the system at any cost because the punitive measures are so large. At the same time, you want to implement complex technologies like track and trace, and you want to digitalize things, and people have many phones. But all of this can only be seen in light of what we need to spend.
So, Dr. Usman, when we are talking about that, how the agriculture, real estate, which has only 5% compliance gap, then undeclared properties, the cooperative societies, the transport, which has 19% of the compliance gap, then unregistered transactions, areas which are largely exempted from the tax. How those could be brought into the tax net?
One way to do this in a more targeted manner is to give taxation power to the local level. Because when you do things from above, it's very hard to manage 240, 250 million people and their relative entities.
Obviously.
Instead, it's good to go to the ground level and have people who know this, local systems, to be able to work. I think that taxation structure goes back to the original question of federalism and how much burden is put on the center to deal with such a large country. In fact, you have to go to the grassroots and see. And in the grassroots, you will start to capture agriculture, you will start to capture retail, and property taxes is also a local issue. And I will tell you that there are, just for regional peers, there are cities like Chennai which generate more property tax than all the property tax in Pakistan.
So, Advocate Tanseer Sahab, very short and brief, how much important digitalization of the tax collection system to have transparency and revenue growth?
It's the backbone. Unfortunately, the uncertainty in our political system kill us. Very rightly, I am saying that year 2020, when Shabbar Zaidi, the former chairman FBR, announces a one action for POS, it was linked with the statutory amendment in Sales Tax Act section 23 that each and every transaction should be made on basis of CNIC, if you recall your memory.
Obviously, okay. You are absolutely right.
At that time, very famous statement given by Mr. Faisal Wauda that each and every people will pay the tax, even pan wala. We were surprised. What will be happen? Then we see this amendment. But Faisal Sahab, it is very unfortunate for our country. All these things failed. At that time, I was the major critic on this amendment due to the reason that this digitalization will not implement in true letter and spirit. That was my experience, you can say 30 years. I know the political system.
Now it's necessary to implement.
But
really.
It is now necessary with iron hands, without political affiliation. Some angel come from God, or some Waliullah come from the God who implement.
No, nobody will come. We have to do it ourselves.
We have to
particularly.
So
Dr. Chohan, very brief. How to protect the vulnerable sector of segments of society from the indirect taxations? What about such measures? Because these are gradually minimizing and severely impacting even the direct or the indirect taxes, because a common man paying the both.
You're absolutely right. It takes a lot of political will and it takes a lot of technical optimization to capture direct taxation, and there doesn't seem to be either of those. So we will continue to rely on indirect taxation. We will probably increase the levies and requirements, and you know what? This will impact the structure of our society. So many of our population's cohorts are young. They don't earn yet. And then we have a big discrimination against women in the workforce. They also don't go and earn in the proper sense.
Obviously.
With these distortions, and yet we want this system to be targeted, optimized, and free of political will, it's not possible.
Your point well taken. Your point well taken, Dr. Usman. Dr. Hasnain, very brief and short, because we have run short of time. So, what about the IMF demand to repeal FBR and cabinet discretionary powers to award tax incentives like subsidies, zero-rated exemptions, reduced tax rates, bring changes into the tax laws of the NGOs and the charitable organizations as well? How do you see it? Very brief, please.
Not into favor of giving any tax exemption to the NGOs, and we must have to rethink and revisit the NGO structure, because it is giving a real dent to our economy. It is still unseen and hidden. We must have to rethink. NGO is creating a real dent to our economy. There are hundreds of examples which is creating the dent, and they are just NGOs are exempting their tax from the organization which are making money, which is going for the black, and they just move that money from the charity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hasnain, Javed, for being online and have a very elaborative, candid views. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you very much, Tanseer Sahab, for particularly here in studios, and for your very candid views. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman, as well. Thank you, so nice of you. Viewers, as you have just listened to our panelists, it is important that we need to get to the real taxpayers, the potential taxpayers, and it is important to focus on the direct taxes rather than just milking through the indirect taxes. And it is important that the untaxed and undertaxed, and especially the elite and those lucrative sectors, including the agriculture, real estate, along with that the transport sector, the retail sector, the gold sector, e-commerce, and all other sectors which are lucrative and can have the ability to pay taxes. Along with that, it is important that we have to avoid the drastic steps to just enhance the tax base, but those must have to be well deliberated, and after the negotiation with those stakeholders involved in it, we have to go into the contributory pension scheme that is important to lay off the burden of the government and to have some contributions into the pension scheme, so that that is not entirely the burden of the exchequer or the government. So we have to go on with the tax laws, particularly the rational tax laws, which are aimed at or based upon certain incentives must have to be curtailed, because it is important that we have to go on with the rational tax laws for all the taxpayers. Along with that, we have to revitalize some of the laws which are giving some incentives to the particular NGOs and to the charitable organizations. We have to avoid it, as IMF is also stressing upon it, because we cannot move forward without the real-time reforms, and we have to go for those tangible reforms into the tax regime. That is important to have the enhanced tax base for Pakistan, because ultimately that will give some sort of a freedom to the government to flex the muscles as the budget is straight away coming. So this is today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.